evening. My name is Margaret Lagerstead. I'm the Archives and Special Collections Coordinator here at Thomas Crane Public Library, and I'm so excited to welcome you all this evening to another incredible lecture in our Quincy 400 series. As we strive to explore all aspects of our diverse community, we are so grateful to have Mary LaHage to share with us a previously untold chapter of Quincy's rich history, one rooted in perseverance, faith, and community. The author of Bird on a Wire, her story traces the journey of her family's immigration and working toward a realized dream, building a mosque for future generations, which led to their contributing to the building of the Islamic Center of New England on South Street in Quincy. She shares the challenges her family faced, financial hardship, social resistance, and acts of vandalism, as well as the support received from her neighbors. Mary LaHage is an award-winning advocate for interfaith dialogue and a trailblazer in Muslim chaplaincy. She comes from a distinguished lineage of pioneers. Both sides of her family, the Hassans and the Omars, emigrated from Lebanon to Quincy at the turn of the 20th century. And today is her birthday. Let's join in celebrating. A little bird told me. So please join me in welcoming our guest, Mary LaHage.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, every one of you. I so appreciate it. Yeah, I planned this for my birthday. Well, first they invited me, and it's a great honor to be invited to participate in the celebration of Quincy. I joined a group recently called The People Who Grew Up in Quincy on Facebook, and right away I said I did not grow up in Quincy. But what I plan to talk about tonight has to do with my family. I can't take any credit for anything. My family, they built a mosque, the first mosque in New England. My family businesses that they started here in Quincy. And I'm just here to report on the history as much as I know of it, which I'm no expert, but we'll see. And I hope to leave a little bit of time for questions and answers. And this is my book called Bird on a Wire, and it's a combination of the history of the mosque on South Street in Quincy Point, and my memoirs, because I had to insert myself into the book at some point when I found religion. So, let's start with the presentation here, hopefully. Let's see if I can maintain this. So here's this is my celebration of Quincy. Now, we had a big election the other night in New York, especially, where a Muslim was elected mayor of the city. And I think that there's a lot of trepidation about that, like what's going to happen, does he hate Jews, what is he going to do? People just don't know, and they're scared about a lot of different things, but mainly because they don't know. And that's why I think this is perfect timing to get to know your Muslim neighbors who were right here in Quincy and in Weymouth. and that's one of the main reasons that I wrote this book, so that we could learn more about the Muslims and this religion. So this mosque, which I'm going to show you here, was built by 8 Muslim families that were settled in Quincy Point. 2 of those families were my mother's family and my father's family. The settlers were the immigrant generation, that immigrants who came, as Margaret said, in the turn of the century. It took them 30 years to build this mosque, 30 years. And so we're going to go from 1934 to 1964. It was finally built in 1964. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the obstacles that they faced when they were trying to build this mosque. Now there's mosques everywhere, on every corner, but this was the only mosque in all of New England for more than a decade. And there it is, proof from the Patriot Ledger. The 8 founding families were not related, and they met in the neighborhood, and they were Lebanese families. There were lots of Christian Lebanese in this neighborhood, but the Muslims are a minority of a minority. And the Christians, Lebanese Christians, were really welcomed by the churches, even though they weren't Catholics, but they were welcomed by, they were most like Maronites and Orthodox Christians. They were welcomed by the Roman Catholic Church, just common. But the Muslims, if you have any sense of religion, have nowhere to pray, nowhere to teach their children about their religion. They came from Lebanon with this religion, and they have, first of all, an unknown ethnicity, and I'll show you that, and an unknown religion. These were 2 big obstacles. But I just want to go over the names. The Omars, that's Omar's Garage. You might have heard of that. And that's my grandfather on my mother's side, came over in 1914. Then my father's side, there were 2 brothers who came, my grandfather, Abdu, and Ishmael in 1909. Assalamu alaikum. And then there were the Eldibs, who are still living in Quincy Point, and they came in 1913. The Derbises, those are my cousins, in 1909, and the Ishmael brothers, the Ismail is also my cousin, but my second cousin. And the Suleimans, who came in 1908, the Alis, who came in 1913, and the Abrahams. So to look now at these, here's the list of obstacles that they had to overcome in order to build this mosque. There was, as I said, unknown religion, unknown ethnicity, and I'll explain that. Well, maybe you know. Who knows why their ethnicity was not known? Anybody know what was going on in 1914, for example, in the Middle East? Yes? You?
The Ottoman Turks had designated just about everybody in that region as Turks. And
That's right.
individual places like Syria and Lebanon and all were subsumed in that identity.
Exactly.
And also the Armenian genocide too in 1915, so, there was a lot of unrest in the Ottoman Empire, exactly.
There was a registration for the ship that my grandfather came on, for example. I found that at Ellis Island. And he is registered as a Turk, not Syrian, not Lebanese. No, he's registered as a Turk because of the Ottoman Empire. And they said his language was Turkish, not Arabic. So his identity was pretty much up in the air. He wasn't Armenian, but yeah. But he wanted to leave anyway because he didn't want to fight for the Turks. And they were having a lot of rebellion. At this time, I spoke with a Turkish scholar who said the rebellion at this time was in Yemen. And Yemen, the scholar said, was like Turkey's Vietnam. So you can picture that. And they would come and recruit all of the young men in the Fertile Crescent, Syria and the Middle East, and send them off to war. And my grandfather told his father, he said, I don't want to shoot anyone. So they let him come to this country. So the other thing that stopped them was the nationwide depression, and the fact that they were unskilled laborers. This is the first big wave of immigrants to this country that started at the turn of the 20th century. And in Quincy Point, this enclave where people were holed up, they were very, very poor. and they had no education. I'm still talking about the immigrant generation. Welcome, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. And then along comes World War II. And that put a pause in the, of course, you know, they have no money, they have no national support, they have no church, they have no nothing. In fact, to be a Protestant, a Catholic, or a Jew are alternative ways of being American. This is a quote from C. Lincoln, Eric Lincoln, who is a historian, and he wrote an anthology about the American Muslim mission in the context of American social history, the Muslim community in North America. So these people had no support at all, and yet, so these were the problems that they had to face. And there's the Ottoman Empire, where everyone was Turkish, apparently, so until 1924. So here's my grandfather. I had to focus in on one of these founders, but they were all involved. The 8 families were all very much involved in building the mosque. But in my book, and I did have to focus on someone, and I did interview him, and I'll tell you right now, interview your parents and your grandparents. Do it now. Don't do it now. Do it yesterday. Yeah, very important. And he was the first imam of this mosque. And what did he do? He married people, he buried people. He was someone, he was not formally trained, but he was someone in his community who knew how to read Quran, the Muslim holy book. So he was sort of spearheading the idea of building a mosque. He got to Quincy in 1930, and he, with his wife and my mother and her brother, and he saw that the people were really losing their religion because they had no place to pray, nowhere to gather, no school to teach their children, and it was a bad situation. Here's his registration on the Martha Washington. He's listed as nationality Turkey, Turkish, last place of residence, Mumraki, Turkey. I don't know if there's even a place. That's a combination of Arabic and Turkey. And there's his arrival. And the one eventful thing when he started his journey from Lebanon was that the lights went out on the ship, and he couldn't speak English, so he had a friend, a woman who was bilingual. She had come back to Syria for a wedding, and she was going back to America, and she told him that the Germans, the war had just begun. We'd gone to war. They had turned out all the lights on the ship to be safe. There were no events, but it was pretty scary. And so he came to Quincy because of the Four Rivers Shipyard, because they offered, well, before that, it was pretty much the Depression, and he had gone all over looking for work. He went to mines in Wheeling, West Virginia, and there he had to buy all his equipment. Then he went down through miles into the ground, and he loaded a lot of whatever they were loading there, and they weighed it down there. Then they sent it back up, and then when he and the other men emerged at the top, they found out that the weights were different. The weight down there was more than the weight at the top. And my grandfather told me he just would never do it again. That was the end. He knew they were not being, honest. And so he gave his equipment to the other men who were waiting in line to work. So he came to Quincy because they were hiring unskilled laborers. And Bethlehem Steel, let me just get into the Four Rivers Shipyard. I don't know how many of you know the history of the Four Rivers Shipyard. How many know some history about it? Yeah, so it was founded in 1884 by Thomas Watson, who is best known for the person on the other end of Alexander Graham Bell's first telephone call. Anyway, it was the largest employer along the South Shore, providing jobs for 30,000 workers during World War II. And they were building ships, and they trained people like my grandfather to be welders and many other names of these jobs that I can't recall right now. And the Bethlehem Steel Company was the second leading steel producer in the United States between 1916 and 1984. And then that, coupled with the Shipbuilding Corporation, which was right here, it became the leading 20th century American business. And it was the largest shipbuilding business in the world for a time. It was General Dynamics was shut down in 1986, according to Wikipedia. So, and now this is a picture of Salman Ali. Salman Ali from Sidon, Lebanon. He was first employed at the Four Rivers Shipyard, and this is a badge that they gave him. This is in the Arab American National Museum now. And this was one of the first badges. And we estimate the time to be about 1920. And he's a member of the Ali family, who were one of the founding families of the mosque. Now, this is my father's family, and I have this picture just to show you how poor they were. That's my father, the tallest one there, and his mother, my grandmother, we call her Siti Naza. So my grandfather, who came in 1909, Abdu, he died in 1920 of tuberculosis. Meanwhile, he had 5 kids. And my father was the oldest. He was 10 years old when his father died. And my grandmother, Siti Naza, who I do resemble, by the way, she was something else. And she actually was illiterate in her own language. But she managed somehow to survive. She had a big garden and 1 cow. They lived on Winter Street in Quincy Point. And she was a farmer in Lebanon. So she worked the garden, and she made enough, produced enough vegetables to feed some of her poor neighbors and so forth. Anyway, Joseph Hassan is my father's closest brother. He was an inventor, and I'll show you what he invented. Mustafa Hassan and Nellie Durbis, the one daughter. And the Durbis brothers are, she's the mother of the Durbis brothers, little Nellie Durbis right there. And because she married a Durbis. And Turk Hassan, that's the youngest, my uncle Turk. They called him Turk because he was at Colby College for a while, 1944, and he created mayhem on the football field. So they called him Turk in 1944. And this name stuck with him, and he was at the South Shore Country Club, and all his friends are calling him Turk, just crazy. Anyway, they were poor. They had dirt floor. And one of the reasons that my parents did not, my parents were born here. My father, for example, and my mother. And they didn't have any mosque, they didn't have any school, they didn't have anything like that. But they conflated their religion of their parents, their immigrant parents, with this poverty. So they never looked back once they left Quincy. They married in the neighborhood. Each one picked one of the families to marry. Not kidding. And then they moved out of Quincy to Weymouth in 1948. So I won't tell you how old I was because I'm not supposed to say. But yeah. So we moved to Main Street in 1948. And it was a world away from this for my father and my mother. So our marching orders in my generation were be American. That's it. Until we reached puberty. And then we were like, you're a Muslim. I'm like, you can't wear that skirt. I'm like, what's a Muslim? What are you talking about? I figured, my mother was against me. Like, when you're 13, your mother's against you, right? Some mothers. Anyway, I just didn't know anything about this. And luckily, she had the encyclopedia, right? People bought encyclopedias in those days. So she sent me to the encyclopedia in our library, and she said, look it up. Look up Islam. I was like, what is that, Islam? And I looked it up, and there was one paragraph about it, which I didn't understand when I read it. And then on the top of the page, there was a picture of a camel. Yeah. This is the help I got from, So I really was not interested in camels or their religion. And anyway, getting back to the struggle of the 8 founding families, in 1934, they formed the Arab American Banner Society. And this is something that enabled them to raise money. They could say they had events. They were putting on events, and they could raise money for the mosque, to build a mosque. And they also gave to charities. They gave 5 times. Let me just read that. Each family, by the way, paid $1 in dues every month. What progress they were making, huh? And they had monthly meetings where they disagreed about everything. Were we going to build a church? Or are we going to buy a place that's already built?
Right.
And they couldn't ever agree because they had no money anyway. And in this Detroit paper in 1948, it printed the following: Arab activism for Palestine in Massachusetts. It is worth mentioning that this is not the first time that the Arab American Banner Society has offered up donations to Dear Palestine ever since this disaster has befallen them. Indeed, it is the 5th time they have gathered donations to aid their brothers in Palestine, end of quote. So, as I said, my grandfather was determined to get this mosque built despite all of the obstacles. But this is something that happened that made his authority as the first imam. It really grounded him. The community recognized him, and it was the first death in the community. The first death happened in February 1939 during a blinding snowstorm. And a man, Joseph Hassan, no relation to the Hassans, was hit by a trolley and killed on Washington Street. And I was doing research from my master's thesis, and I went to Sweeney's funeral home to find out if what my grandfather, who had told me that in the interview, if he was right. I was checking, and there it was. Sweeney had a whole drawer of small books with the year emblazoned on the cover. And there it was, February 1939, Joseph Hassan, hit by a trolley. And I don't know if you've ever done research, you know that moment where you feel like, wow, this is really true. It's really fantastic. So anyway, what happened was the obligation to bury this man was, everyone looked to my grandfather, Omar. And Muslims buried their dead fast, just like the Jewish. And they had to be washed and then shrouded. And there was no place to wash this person. And this is the most important thing, first thing. So my grandfather shuffled down to Quincy Center to the barber shop. And there he remembered meeting this man, Sweeney, who had started the funeral home in 1917. And he asked him, could he use the facilities to wash the body? And Sweeney said, sure, sure. But Sweeney had other ideas. After the washing, he asked for a suit. He put the man in a suit, and then he brought him upstairs to a good old-fashioned Irish wake. And my grandfather, with the casket open in the suit, not the shroud, and my grandfather, his English was not very good, of course, and he didn't want to sound like he was ungrateful for what happened, so he just let it happen. And the man Sweeney had invited all the friends and family to come to the funeral home. And this became a tradition for these 8 founding families and for their descendants right up from that day, 1939, until 1982, when the mosque hired an educated imam from Lebanon who had studied at Al-Azhar. And he said, no, we don't want to do this. Then we got to modify it just a little bit. So they did wash, they did wrap the person in the shroud, and then they kept the coffin closed, and then they brought the coffin up to Sweeney's room, but the Muslims then prayed the funeral prayer at Sweeney's. They did this for decades, the janazah prayer. So anyway, getting back to this obstacle, I just want to say that here's World War II. John Omar was my uncle, my mother's brother, the imam's son. And everyone in Quincy Point, every one of those families sent people into the military. Every one of them, sometimes more than one. But John came back with the Purple Heart. Yeah, it's a great story. I will have to tell it sometime. But he got married here in 1946, and I have this picture because it's I like to use this picture because these are really most of the people who were in the Arab American Banner Society. And here they are, dressed, not like you might expect. And I use this picture to sort of break down stereotypes. And so the one with the big hat is my mother. She was the matron of honor, not the bride. And my father beside her. There's the bride, Mary Omar. Everyone's named Mary in my family. My mother, Mary, me. But Mary Omar, the beautiful bride, her picture was downtown in Quincy Center at the photographer's store for months. It was such a lovely picture. And there's my grandfather's up there with a little bit of hair, just a little bit. And yeah, there's Sam Hassan and his sister Emma, very well known in Quincy. Okay, so the people who, I have one quote from a group from Quincy, the people who grew up in Quincy, and they said about, oh no, we're not there yet, sorry. Okay. This is the next generation, the American-born, my parents' generation. Kamal Derbis, of course, he's the youngest there, but there's John, Sam Hassan, his sister Zeta, she was the secretary of the mosque for a long time, Zeta Shah Hassan, and Fatima Ali. And at first, they were not interested in building a mosque because they're all born here. They still know nothing about this religion. They have no cultural baggage from Lebanon, only their immigrant parents. And they wanted, like I said, all of us, our marching orders were be American. That was it. And then, but then once they had their own children, and their children getting older, and people were, some of us were saying, well, like, we want to get married in the church. No, where's our church? We want to get married in white gowns and walk out of the church to a limousine. Where is that? We have nothing like that. And here's one quote from someone from the 1950s. And she said, I think this generation wanted to relate to a church. People ask, where church do we go to? Again, to be a Christian, a Catholic, a Protestant, or a Jew was to be an American. So this was really important in the 1950s under Eisenhower and so forth. So, yeah, and here is the beginning of the discussion about some of the businesses that these Arab Americans, the Lebanese people, my father and uncles and so forth in my family started. And like I said, I can't take any credit for this. I'm just reporting on this. So this is Hassan Brothers, Nash Rambler, 1946. And that's my grandmother, Siti Nazar, with Mayor Ross, Charles Ross. He was the mayor from, I think, 1944 to 1946, something like that. He was a Republican, if you want to know. And that was at the grand opening of the Hassan Brothers Garage, which was right on Washington Street. And let's see. These are the Hassan brothers with their wives and their mother. So they were, that picture of the poor Hassans you saw, now there they are in the front row. Very, at the end of the war, my father had a list of 200 people who wanted to buy a car.
Wow.
Yeah, because there was no iron, none of that. So they just went crazy, and yeah, that's them now, the front row, and then their wives are in the back there, and there's Siti Nazar right there. Yeah, and then my father opened another dealership up the street on Washington Street, and he started selling Dodges for Chrysler. And I took my driver's license. I'm not going to say what year that was, but I took my driver's license in the Dodge Dart, brand new Dodge Dart. And the story is in this book. It's called Silver Platter License. My father came with us at the registry, for the Quincy registry, and he sat in the back. And the registry man was so taken with the car. He just ignored me. I drove up over the sidewalk when I was supposed to be parallel parking, and yeah. Anyway, I got my license just like that. So Omar's garage. At first, my uncle worked for my father in the garage. My father and John Omar were great mechanics, the best. And then Omar opened up his own place, first on Water Street and then on Brook Road. And the quote from people who grew up in Quincy, I love this quote. This is from Judy Ryan, who is now living in Phoenix, Arizona. And she said, "Every old clunker was kept alive thanks to Omar's." Every old clunker. And I couldn't find their sign. I asked my cousins do you have a sign of the business? No, they won't pay attention to me. So I found this thing, custom-made blanket or something, yeah. And then I didn't get much information from Kamal Durbis, but they had a big company, the Durbis Brothers Construction and Paving Company here in Quincy. And that was founded by Robert Durbis, Siny Durbis, his name. And he look at that, Quincy High School Football Hall of Fame.
What did you say his name
Durbis, Siny Durbis.
was?
Siny, yeah. But his American name was Robert. And yeah, very well known in Quincy. And then we have Ma's Lunch. Ma's Lunch, which was across the street from the shipyard. And here's a quote from Joe McDonald, shipyard worker. He says, "Every Friday when the lunch whistle blew at 11:30, I would run as fast as I could off the LNG tanker I was working on and head to Ma's Lunch for the fish and chips that came in a brown paper bag. Delicious," he says. "Then I hit Joe's for a pint draft to wash it down with." Yeah, Ma's Lunch started by Sam Hassan Jr. and worked by his sister, Seda. Sam Hassan is Ismail. Ismail was my grandfather's brother. They came in 1909, and now this is Ismail Jr., i.e. Sam, and his sister Zeta, and they worked at Ma's Lunch for a long, long time. I couldn't get a sign for Ma's Lunch either, but the people on Facebook sent me this picture. This is Winter Street in 1940, and Ma's Lunch, the Hassans lived, what did they say? He said they lived right behind the restaurant. So this is a picture of where they lived on Winter Street. This is Fatima Ali, who was assistant principal at Broadmeadow Elementary School for a long, long time. And then she became the principal. And then she retired. And I just wanted to give a nod to her. She is the oldest founder, oldest living founder. She's in her 90s. Her mind is sharp as it can be. And I've consulted with her many times for, asking about different things. And she was the secretary of this Arab American Banner Society for decades. And when I started to do my research, she had written all of the secretary's reports, all of the treasurer's reports, all of the board meeting reports. And these were primary sources that I was able to use in my research. And she is meticulous about keeping records. Amazing. This is now Joseph Hassan, my father's brother. and his wife Ramsey. She was from the Amin Suleiman family who lived on Des Moines Road, and he was an inventor. That meant that he never came out of the basement. Yeah, and you remember Joe Hassan. Everyone knows my cousin Joe? Remember Joe? Asked Deb Nichols. Sandy's shaking her head, yeah? Yeah, Joe was a year ahead of us, right? And all my friends were my friends because of my cousin Joe, but that's okay. These are his parents, Joe and Joe. And his father, Joe, was this inventor, and he invented these cards. If you notice, they're shaped like a parallelogram. Canasta was a very big sport in the 50s, and that's when he invented these cards. He complained every time that they had to be shuffled. You have to have 2 decks, and at the end of a hand, they're all mixed up together, and they're all in a mess. And it would take, before you could redeal the cards, you had to straighten them all out. And he complained every time they played canasta. So he emerged from the cellar with one of these inventions. This is now also in the Arab American National Museum in Detroit, Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, excuse me. And the card is shaped like a parallelogram, so the corner sticks up. So if one card is facing the other way, the corners will stick up. And you just grab the corners and you spin it around just like that, and they're all going the same way. 2 seconds. Yeah, and they never made a penny from this invention, no? Because he wouldn't let it go. There were only 2 card companies that were at the time. And one was Japanese, and they were really interested in it, and they went, the Hassan brothers, not my father, but Joe and Uncle Mustafa went to New York to meet them, and they offered him a deal, and he said no. And that was the end of it. Yeah. If my father had gone with him, because he was the eldest, my father, he would have said yes, but my father was busy, so he didn't go, and that's what happens sometimes in life, right? Yeah, it's a big missed opportunity. The patent has run out now. Yeah, it was 1950-something. And I just throw this in there because this was a worker from the Four River Shipyard who started Dunkin' Donuts down in the Southern Artery. I just love that picture. I don't know if you ever went there or remember that, but it's pretty cool. Now, the poor mosque people, now in the 50s and 60s, something happens that finally works. And it's this guy here, King Saud, who is the second, he's the second, he came to Boston for eye surgery in 1961. And the Massachusetts State Legislature recognized the Arab American Banner Society for the first time and invited the society to send representatives to the State House to greet the king. So my grandfather didn't go, but he did visit him in the hospital and brought him a jar of honey. And he said, he wrote him a special poem. And they exchanged holiday cards for a couple of years. Well, 1 year. And in 1962, he sent $5,000 for the donation to build the mosque. And they were a little disappointed, right? It was only $5,000, but it was everything. It got everybody excited, and they just gained the momentum, and they built the first building. So it's getting late, and I want to leave time for some questions. I'm going to quickly show you what happened from 1964 to 1991. they started getting vandalized right away. And then there were, in 1965, the Immigration Act was passed. And by the time the mosque was built, there was nobody left in Quincy. They had all left Quincy, basically, and in the diaspora. And like we went to Weymouth, everybody went everywhere. And so there were 9 people showing up at the mosque, 9 people, and they had bills to pay now. Mortgage, everything, electricity bills. So anyway, 1965, the gates open wide, and everyone comes to the mosque from 25 different countries. And the mosque is inundated with people. And of course, they know this religion. They know more about the religion than anybody else that's already there, right? And they decide to try to take over, because there were 2 attempted takeover events in the 1970s. You can read about it in my book. And then in 1982, we get a Lebanese imam who brings, peace to the chaos. And Imam Talal Eid, you might have met him sometime. And he takes over. My grandfather was very old by 1982, but he came and took over as the imam. And then they just made all these building expansions, including down in Sharon, where they have another whole campus, Islamic Center of New England in Sharon. And I'll just show this real quick. This is where I insert myself into the book. And the mosque was set on fire in 1991. And I went there to look over the situation. My cousin Zeta was in the secretary's office, and she said the Quincy Fire Department came right away, and they were just great. And we were getting cards and donations and already. And I said, okay, that's great. And then she said, just go check the closet under the stairway and see about the boxes. I said, what boxes? She said, the boxes that hold all the records, Fatima Ali's records, all of the board meetings and the whole history of the mosque. And I had been the secretary for 4 years, and I never heard of these boxes. But Zeta said, go check and make sure they didn't get burnt up in the fire or damaged. And I was just completing my master's degree, and I had only to write a thesis. And when I saw these boxes full of these documents, I said, that's going to be my thesis. I'm going to write the history of this mosque. And that's how it started. And that's included in this book. The main theme of the book is identity in America. Yeah, which is pretty tricky sometimes. And it's a unifying theme, I think, for everyone. So we have a few minutes for questions. I'm sorry. Please. Thank you.
Where you got the title?
The title, oh, a good question. So my grandfather we'd be driving down the road, and he would see these birds on the telephone wire, and he would say, they're lining up for prayer. And that's the way Muslims pray. They pray in a line. And he believed that, as the Quran says, that everything worships God. And that stuck with me, because his mother told him that, I guess, or something. And that was the example of everything worships God. And then I do a lot of singing, so I put the singing notes there, and there I am, the bird on a wire. Yes?
Yes, my father was born and raised in Lebanon, and we were Melkites, Eastern, Christians.
Yes.
But not Maronites, the major sect. We were Melkites, the minority sect. in
I see.
Lebanon.
Yep.
But my mother was born here, and she's Lebanese, and she went to Lebanon with her family in 1948 and married my father. And then she came back and waited to make the papers for my dad, and then he came to America, no English, no money, the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, built a business, and I grew up, my small childhood, I grew up right on Winter Street.
Oh,
My
wow.
mother knew.
What's your name?
Susan Hajar.
Oh, of course,
Yeah,
of course.
And my grandfather came to the United States. with
Hajar's clothes.
Yeah, Hajar's clothing, that's my family.
Yep, for
But-
tall and, yeah.
Yeah, big and tall.
Yeah, big
And
and
in
tall.
1911, my mother's father came to America. He worked in the shipyard and later created Charlie's Lunch. But I'd been to Ma's Lunch.
Oh.
Because my mother was very good friends with Fatima.
Uh-huh,
And is that the one?
Zeta, Zeta.
Right, yeah,
Right.
so, and I remember my grandmother, you know, my grandfather went back to Lebanon when he was here for a few years, I guess, went back to Lebanon, he married my grandmother, and then she came. And she had friends on Winter Street. I bought my Jeep from the
Hassan Brothers.
Yeah. So I'm, you know, and my parents had the store on Quincy, on Des Moines Road, not Des Moines Road, on East Howard Street.
Uh-huh,
They started there, a fruit and vegetable store. And
Uh-huh.
then they graduated to clothing, and then one day someone came to the store and said, "Mr. Hajar, can you help me? I can't fit into clothes." So that's how we started the Big and Tall business.
well, this is a great history. Have you been to the museum in Dearborn?
No.
Oh, you should go. You should go, and you should think about contributing what artifacts you have, because these things get lost so fast, and people do appreciate it, you know, once they see it. It's so important. It's smart to keep track of your heritage.
Right.
And yeah, well, I know he was known by all of the people on Winter Street, very well known. Was very well known in Quincy, but yeah.
My
Yeah.
parents also, just one more thing, went to a service at the mosque,
Uh-huh,
probably more than once, but at least once, so they were very involved with
uh-huh.
the Lebanese community, no matter what
Yeah.
their religions were.
They were, right, they were all there together, and they celebrated their holidays. Each holiday, everybody cooked, they all celebrated together, and they didn't marry each other, but they,
Oh, right, they were friends.
They were
right. My
friends,
mother
yeah,
had-
yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
I have a question right there. Yeah,
That was very enlightening, I love it. I wanted to ask, you guys said you left the baggage behind, the cultural baggage, but did you bring your food and your language? Did it stay back with you guys? Your Arabic, Lebanese Arabic, and your food? Like you said, mass lunch, would that be like American food, or did it have Lebanese food?
it was both.
Okay.
It was both. Fish and chips, yeah, and then Syrian food, yeah. Yeah, they made Syrian food. Go ahead.
My second question was, so I know you guys were into businesses, but it didn't reflect, it did hit at that point to go into politics?
Politics.
Because
Oh,
I
that's
know
a-
your
that's a
grandmother was
story.
so,
Where's
was so, like, close to the mayor, she had her arms around him. So just like, so interesting.
Well, that's an interesting question. They got close enough to the politicians to be able to get what they needed. And it was a different world. I don't think they thought about being in politics because they had other more pressing issues to overcome, you know. And I mean, it took 30 years to build that mosque. So that took a lot of faith and patience and, I don't know, what's the word?
Tenacity?
Yeah, tenacity. And
And I met Zeta, like my memory is I met Zeta when I got married and moved here. I met Zeta, spent some time with her. So I went to her funeral. And Sweeney didn't know how far back it goes to.
well, when I was the secretary to the mosque, the office secretary, from 1984 to 1988, people would come in, the Muslims would come in, and they say, "Oh, thank you for building this mosque." And I'd be like, "Okay." They just embraced me, not because I was a cheerleader or a singer or anything, but because of my family. And I got to look through their eyes at how important this was, this building of this mosque. Because when my mother told me to go, I said, "Are my friends going to be there?" And she said, "No, no." And I said, "Then I'm not going to go." And I didn't go in 1964, and I came back 20 years later. Do we have time for another question, Margaret? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious, was it at the time where you said the imam came from Lebanon, I think you said Talal Eid?
Yes.
That came, and that was 1982, I think. Is that when the masjid decided to kind of rebrand itself as the Islamic Center of New England and start that type of...
No, they decided on that name right from day one. And they were the Islamic Center of New England, the only mosque in all 6 states for over a decade. Yes, Uncle Abe had a vision, and he was the one who said, "Let's call it the Islamic Center of New England." And then when the I keep saying the Act of Immigration Act was passed in 1965, right, which was so important. They had put the American generation, my parents' generation, were now in charge of the board of directors and all. And they put the name of the mosque, and they put it in the yellow pages, they put it at the airport, and things like that. So, yeah, so people could find it. Yes, go ahead.
Fatima Ali was also principal of a Swan school, and I didn't go to it at that time, but when she came, she had a meeting with the parents and everything to explain her religion and who she was, and that she had long roots in Quincy.
Wow,
But she was there for a number of years, I understand, and was well liked.
wow. Thank you for that. I'll have to ask her about that.
Yeah.
A fact I might have overlooked. So, are there any other questions?
I'm kind of curious about the current, like, as the mosque is now, what your involvement? Are you still involved with it?
Oh, yes. I've given talks about my book there, and in Quincy, in Sharon, in Wayland. I moved to the Metro West area from the South Shore, and the closest mosque there was in Wayland, called the Islamic Center of Boston in Wayland. Yeah, and so people eventually left the mosque in Quincy because they were coming from Maine, Rhode Island, and they built their own mosque. And they learned how to do that from the people in Quincy. And the people in Quincy would go to every new mosque and pray there, congratulate them. So I worked, I was active in Wayland, where I taught religion. And my son went to school there, Sunday school there. And then, when I was offered a chance to present on my book, they asked me in Sharon to go to the board meeting. And I went to the board meeting, and of course, all they talk about is money. You know, where are we going to get the money to do this and to do that? And how are we going to interest the youth to come back? Same thing that all churches and synagogues have, have problems with. Same thing, money and the youth. Yeah. And so that's where they're at. Islamophobia is still very present, and I hope that that changes one day. And I think that Ma'am Danny, one of his speeches, he said the Muslims can come out of the dark corners now. They can emerge into the light. And gosh, that felt good to hear that. I think anyone who feels like they're hiding, likes to hear that you can come out now. And we'll see what happens. Thank you so much.